Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Lots of reviews for you this week. We've actually got, what, 2.5 reviews. I don't think we can quite call the Trumperter Intruder E a full review, because obviously we've done A. Anyway, well, might as well start with it. Still cracking along with the Avenger Star Destroyer here. To be honest, spoken a lot about it, especially on Facebook, things like that, that, you know, it's a lot more work than I originally anticipated. The problem we've got with it is, as I say, is that nothing actually fits. I'm not going to pull it all apart because I've sort of got it to this level, but nothing's glued yet. This is just another dry fit. But needless to say, what I've really done is cut the hell out of the entire lower section completely. I've removed all the formers, if you like, that the kit had, and things like that. So we've gone almost back to basics. So this is totally a shell now, and I'm using my own reinforced work, my own sparring system and everything else really to put it together. And as you can see, or hopefully you can see, with the exception of these side ones I've still got a fiddle to get in, it's actually now come together really nicely. And the great thing is now it all fits, whereas before it was all over the place. Now I've got it into a situation where, okay, it wasn't going to go together, it was going to be a complete nightmare, and I was going to fight with it every step of the way. So it's easier for me to say, right, okay, forget keeping it original, that's just get it to how we want it to be. So the way of doing that is, okay, we're going to get in there and we're going to literally saw the hell out of the lower section, and then obviously come back and then take a fresh look at it, a fresh approach, and how I would build it. So I'm almost using it, instead of doing a kit and following the instructions, not that this has got any, and the way it goes together is thinking it from my point of view, right, this is the parts I've got in front of me, this is what I need to build, what's going to be the best, easiest and fastest way of doing that. So from my point of view, it's a case of, right, okay, all the structure inside, all the locating blocks and things like that, they've all got to go because nothing actually fits. And what's happening is that these joints, because they're not fitting, are causing problems elsewhere because it's making things out of shape. And then obviously when you're onto a situation where you've got the lower hull, the midsection, the top deck if you like, then you've got each one of these. So we've got here, technically if you're doing it levels, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to the top layer. By the time you get to the 7th layer, it is nowhere near it. And for you guys, if you're in the forum or certainly on the Facebook and things, you would see I put up a photo looking down here, and each one of these sections was completely out. And it wasn't that they were warped, because these top ones I don't think actually were. From this section up, it was just the lower ones being out of position, and it was pushing things all out of position. Which is one thing is quite nice, because when you're doing something like this, you almost expect it. When you're building a plastic kit and things like that, you're not. Okay, but it makes you look at things in a slightly different way of, like, you know, perhaps when you're building your normal styrene kit, why it doesn't go together? Okay, is there something you can do to the model to make it a better fit? So forgetting what the instructions say, forgetting what the locating tabs are and pins are, sometimes it's easier to come along and think, well look, this is causing me real problems, I'm going to cut that tab off, I'm going to cut this bit off, going to do it myself, put it in and do it. And certainly I've built kits in the past with bulkheads and things like that, which has made the spread too much on a kit, so the fuselage halves won't go together. So I've ended up getting rid of those bulkheads and things and making my own and putting my own in that fit better, and it gives you a far better fit and stops you having alignment problems and joints and everything in. And it's only when you work on something like this, where you're not looking for locating tabs and stuff because it doesn't have any, that you're in a position to say, right, well this is what I'm going to do. But it's a good exercise because you can use it throughout any modelling you're doing. And certainly little things like when I was working on the Iwo Jima, trying to get things to fit in, sometimes it didn't quite work, so cut the locating tab off, sit it in, get it into how I liked it, then you can move forward and go through it like that. So it's just a good little exercise if you're working on resin, if you're working with styrene, even if you're working with metal, is sometimes that, you know, you'll be in a situation where things just will not line up. So just take a step back, right, why isn't it lining up? Where's the problem? Okay, find that problem and then deal with it. And if it means changing it, adjusting it, whatever, to give you the better fit, then that's what you need to do. Instead of just trusting what a manufacturer's done for you and hoping he's got it right, okay, that you can actually say, no, he's cocked it up, it's wrong, I'm going to do it like this, I'm going to replace it, I'm going to put it in. Certainly, if you're in the world like I've done in the Mars, and I've covered this a lot before, but especially 10 years ago, when you used to get a resin cockpit for a styrene aircraft for a plastic kit, they would never fit. And it was always that thing of like, okay, what's going to give? Are you going to take chunks out of the plastic kit to make it fit, or are you going to take chunks out of the resin? And normally you end up doing both. And I know some certain kits, like for instance, the Hasegawa 1/48 scale Tomcat, F-14 Tomcat. When you tried to put the Aries cockpit into it, it just wouldn't go. And it was that thing of like, well, why doesn't it go? Well, technically the Aries cockpit is a little bit too wide. So you had two options. You either sanded down the sides, so they were that thin it would fit in, risking damaging the actual part itself, or you went along and you sanded to an inch of its life the outside, or the inside of the styrene, so you could literally hold it up and you could see through it. But it was the only way you could fit the two together. But as I said, it was that balanced bit. So you might think like, why was it ever done like that? Why wasn't it? Because the tolerances of the actual inside, to make the cockpit actually to scale and everything, it had to be like that, because you had to allow the thickness of the actual resin to be able to be cast and pulled from the mould and everything else like that. So consequently, that's the little thing with it. But getting back on track, that's what we're trying to do with this one, is to get it in. There's a couple of things I'm going to have to admit defeat on that I'm not going to be able to do. First of all is mounting this rearwardly. Originally I was going to have it on a system where it was going to be mounted to the rear, but the trouble I'm having now, and I'll be honest with you, what I'm going to have to do is weigh this to see, this actually weighs a small ton. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come along and put more resin into this yet. Is obviously you can have LED lighting. It's going to be a lot heavier than I originally thought it was going to do. My problem with that is I've got various formers which I've got in here, and we can have a bar running in, but it's all adding weight to it. So I'm trying to keep it as light as possible by strengthening it and making sure we get no sag, nothing in the future that's going to happen. But because of that, there's no way I'm going to have the side bar coming across to actually be able to mount it from the side, because I don't think physically it's going to take the weight. I think it's going to literally do that if it's mounted from the side. If it's mounted through, it's all very well, but we can only go as far forward really as the moon port, as I'm calling it in the build, but it's actually the main cargo bay underneath, because you can't get any more further forward than that, not the diameter we're using. So I might just drop the entire idea of having it mounted from the rear and just mount it from underneath, and I'll have it on a soft mount so it can all move round. We're going to have a very clever plug-in for the power and the on-off switch to go for all the lighting on this. Will actually be on the ship somewhere, which I intend to hide very technically to make it look like it's part of the ship, and do it like that. But needless to say, it's still a fun build. It's just taking a lot more time than I ever thought it would do. You know, really, it's been 2 weeks and we've only got it to this, and I thought that it'd be a week to put it together, probably a week farting around getting all the electronics and everything else sorted to it, and then a week probably we can get it into primer by week 3 and we'll be making our way through. I'm basically running about a week late. But anyway, part 3 is up on the site now, so you can go off and have a look at that. We talk about obviously putting all this detail back in here, these little white dots you can see dotted all around it. There's a lot more underneath, and obviously working with resin again, and talking about using resin as a filler and things like that. So certainly it's coming together very, very nicely, and hopefully this time next week when you see it, it might even be in primer, because I intend to really get on with this one over the next few days, push forward for it over the weekend, and then really make a good effort at the beginning of the week to get us into a nice solid position where we can start doing the real fun stuff of getting this thing painted and doing weathering and stuff like that. Anyway, what else we've got to talk about? Moisture in the line. A couple of you guys were talking about moisture in your compressors through your airline, okay? Now it says, because we've got everything everywhere, if we just grab an airbrush, I think what you're finding, it may have been since you've actually cleaned out your air tanks and things like that, because obviously I showed that. I found that on mine I had droplets of water appearing early in the week, and then they were being spat. Okay, so when you put this in, he says, I've got a locked on trigger, but when you were spraying, sometimes you get spits of water coming out. What can happen is the moisture trap on compressors are not a foolproof that's it answer. Sometimes they get a little bit overwhelmed. And also, if you pull the air through very, very quickly, and if I just turn on the top cam, just up here, what you may see underneath, you see this little guy here, this little bubble, that's water. And you might see I've got water in my airline as well. Now, to be honest, I've already cleaned this out. This is just a little bit. I had quite a lot more water coming through. The little tip to get rid of it, okay? If you're using a flexible hose just like this, you can obviously bend it over and crimp it. If not, don't worry about it. But all you need to do is blow out the air that's in here. So what you want to do is max out your compressor completely. So in a situation you've got it up to its maximum PSI, 40 PSI, whatever it is. If it's higher, even better. Okay. What you do is that, and let it out. Normally it doesn't go bang quite as well, but I didn't have hold of it. Okay, then if you can, what that would have done, and I'm fortunate I'd missed it, it will blow out all the water that's in your airline, and it immediately causes like a low pressure down in the compressor and into the moisture trap, and what that will do, it will help spit it all out. And unfortunately, as I say, because I dropped it, I've lost it, but it would have spat out the water. So if you do it like this, you can literally see the droplets walking up, but all I do is my quick fix. There you go, a bit just spat off, hit me on the forehead. Stick your finger over the hose like this, let it come up to pressure until your compressor cuts off. So just a sec. Those of you know, I've got 3 compressors under there now. I think this is the smaller one. So you're down to that, and then literally blow it out, let it empty itself, and just do that 2 or 3 times, just like this. And what it is, it'll work out all that water. Remember, release all the water in your moisture trap. In fact, I've got a little bit on my hand again. Okay, let that blow out with full pressure in there. Okay, and then exactly the same thing as we're doing here. And just very squeeze the end if you can, just to vary it. And you should find you'll be in a situation where, there we go, we can clip that on. We'll put this back on the end and screw it all up. Nice and tight. And then when you look at your hose now, and we've done a good job there, you've completely cleaned it out. But what happens is you can get a couple of droplets down there, and trust me, it's happened to me as well. It's really annoying that you're spraying and then that water suddenly gets up, it comes along up into your actual nozzle, and then obviously you spit the water, which has then thinned your paint, and it can make a huge mess of your model, because all of a sudden it's got a massive amount of thin stuff and it just literally blasts it out. But that's it, and then obviously you're all set to go, just like that. Okay, but if you look down through the hose there, we've got no droplets at all in there. But as I said, I think what that was me, when I showed you about doing the compressor, I was a bit bad. I was tipping up mine to get it out. Obviously that water's got flicked around and it's dripping off the compressor and everything it's got then into the moisture trap, and then obviously the moisture trap gets overwhelmed by it all, and obviously you get that little stony thing in there. You know, a lot of it is, it's allowing it to sort of collect in that area, then you blow it out, but it can travel up through. That's the problem you got. So if you're wondering about it, that's my quick fix way of doing it. Literally let the end of the hose off, let it blow out, and you will find those water droplets and everything else in that system will just blow through. What I'll do in a minute is get back down there again, empty out the moisture trap again, blow that through a couple of times, and then check your hose, because obviously if you haven't got a clear one like I can, you can't see what's going on in it. I'm quite lucky I can see it in there, but I did notice with mine the other day, went to use it, turned it on, and you could see quite a puddle, a solid lump of water making its way up. And because I could see it, it was like, right, okay, I'm going to blow it out, and that's what I did to it. But there was even still now a few droplets in there. But if you do 3 or 4 blow throughs, then you'll be absolutely fine. But it's just a little quick tip for you. And if you are finding that's what's happening, just do that and you'll be absolutely fine with it. Right, okay, first up, we're going to look at the Kitty Hawk Dauphin 2 helicopter in 1/48 scale. Hi, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Review time. Kitty Hawk's new SA365S Dauphin 2. Admittedly, this is one of those iconic helicopters that's been around a long time, and if you've ever been near one, you'll know they've got that distinctive sound with that enclosed tail and everything else like that. Kit-wise though, I can't think of anybody really who's come along and done them, so it's quite a nice Kitty Hawk had come in. Usual thing, we've got some nice box art, as you can see. Obviously it's a French helicopter, so all the markings are going to be French, I do believe. But as I say, we've got a couple of different ones there. We've got a rescue bird, and then obviously I think we've just got the standard marine one. And then looking round the old box, you can see we get a little bit of photo etch with it, some great decals we'll look at in a moment, and everything else. Very nicely done there. So you say your kit number is KH80108, and we'll have a look in the box. So up front, straight in, we'll have a look at the old instructions. So Kitty Hawk's usual way, you get a nice glossy outside paper inside. If I just move that camera out just a touch, there we go. So as I said, showing off the the marine one down here in the combat markings off to start with. No doubt we'll get them on the back as well. Usual thing, we've got the call outs for where all the trees are and everything else, obviously pointing out. We've got decals for the instrument panel and a lot of photo etch as well. Okay, usual thing, in with the rotor studs to start with. So we're working on the rotor head, putting all that detail in. Very nice colour call outs as you go all the way through as well in federal standard numbers. It's quite a nice touch. Okay, popping those all together. And then we're going in straight into the instrument panel onto the floor paste, a couple of bulkheads going in, all of that detail. We've got a photo etched instrument panel with a decal behind it. So you obviously paint your the back of the instrument panel, and that'll be the top combing as well of it. And then it'll be a case, they're saying, put the instrument panel down onto that, then the decal. I would have thought you'd put the decal down, then the instrument panel, but it just depends which way it's done. We'll have to look at that one. Okay, and then seats going in. We've got photo etch seat belts, fair enough, going in there. A couple of seats, they look a little bit comfy for this one. Okay, and then over the top bulkheads, and then bulkheads to the rear. Actually, it's a very strange way of doing it. I thought this was going to clamshell together and it would be like an internal, but it looks like it's going to be something different. Front bulkhead running right the way over, then your gear is going all on it, even before you put the floor on. Seems to be a strange way of doing this one, but we're just going to run with it. Right, okay, so all of this lot then fits down over the top, as you can see, right on over everything just down here, and then you're building up the sides. So I'm assuming there's a very strange way of putting this one together. I haven't seen one done this before. Okay, and then you've got the actual engine sets going into the holes. Looks to be a little bit small for the big hole, so you can do a little bit of wiring, detail work and everything else like that. Then you're putting the front part of the actual front of the aircraft on, top glass, then the actual system itself. The roof goes on afterwards. Okay, this actually is a weird way of doing it, because normally you get with a helicopter, you build the internal and normally you have two halves come around it and then it sandwiches it all in and away you go. This one looks like it's built up of individual panels all over it. So as I said, you're going to put the doors on, the glass work goes on, then the bigger doors on the side, or you can obviously have, I think, in a sort of different way of doing it, slid open. Panels go on the side and then on top. That's an incredibly complicated way of going together. Tails go together and then back into it. Okay, fair enough, we get all of that. Nose goes on, I can get that, then your doors go on. So you've actually built up everything out of tiny little bits instead of having fuselage sections. I would have thought that would have been photo etched, but it's not actually for the tail rope system, enclosed into that big tail that goes on the back. Okay, and then it's detailing up and that clips into the back of it. Crikey. Okay, you have more joins on this than anything. Back system goes on, the hoist is not the hoist, forget that, we're looking at it upside down. Okay, more detail work going underneath. Rotor head set goes on, right. Okay, and then you come in and detail more of the engine. So you've done the engine once and you're going to come in and do it again. Okay, and then you're really putting it all together. So you've got the second part of the rear part of the cabin goes on, which is on a slider as well. Yeah, it is an incredibly complicated way of putting it all together, but I'm sure there's reasons for this. I just can't fathom it out at the moment. Okay, there you've got the hoist goes on, torpedo set, torpedo goes on, and you're done. So, piece of cake. That looks to be an incredibly complicated way of going together. That's not a quick build. Okay, and then back out, you've got another marine one and a nice one in a camo set as well. So, whichever way you want to do it. And then that is my little particular favourite. Absolutely fantastic. So you've got this sort of sun sinking down here with this lovely colour scheme running right the way over it, which would be my one to do if I was to do it every time. Not that I'm dissing the kit, but that's an incredibly complicated way of doing it. Okay, clear parts off the top, so we'll look at those first. On the upside though, those clear parts are clearer than a clear thing on a clear day, because they are absolutely lovely. We've got no webbing at all. When we say webbing, it's just where they're moulded. Sometimes you get a cooler bit of plastic and then it comes in, you get, and it looks like a tiny cobweb laying across it. This is absolutely crystal clear. We've got no distortion when you run this round at all. And I know they're flat, but they are slightly curved, so you'd think you get some sort of magnification in there. That's absolutely lovely. So no problem with all that clear stuff you've got to put in individually. Clear parts going in. I know, because people are asking me, My preferred way of doing it now is thinning this stuff micro crystal clear. You could use any PVA glue, but I do like the crystal clear stuff. If you thin it down and let the capillary action run to the edges, it will run off of anything that's flat. And then the biggest secret and the tip I can give you is to leave it completely, just forget about it for 24, 48 hours to let it go completely off. Then you can come in and mask up around it all afterwards. But if you try and do it too soon and it hasn't stuck properly, it's like a very weak PVA, but it does go very, very hard if you leave it. Funny old bags, food bags, as I call them, with a staple, but whatever works. So we've got multi-parts in here. Again, this is one of those where it comes out of the factory in one, like this, and then to get them in a smaller box, they bend it. Okay. Looking at it immediately, the first thing it grabs you is it's pretty chunky. We've got weapons on here, obviously not for this particular aircraft, so coming down the line I think you'll find it with other things. Okay, but certainly the gates seem to be very heavily moulded on. We've got sink marks in the actual sprue trees themselves. Okay, as you make your way along here, and everything else, just trying to see various details. The ejector pin marks are a bit flashy. You might need to clean them up to get them to all sit together, but down in here you might see they're a little bit flashy. And then working your way around, just all these smaller parts. A little bit of flash on everything, if we're honest, running all the way down here. No real seam lines on the small parts where it's moulded together, so those looks like they've come in well. Just these gates are very, very heavy. It seems to be the sort of Chinese way of doing it. They tend to have very heavy sprue gates on there. I'd say little bits of flash here, there and everywhere. You can probably see like down here on this part we're a little bit flashy, but it's not on the part itself, so you don't have to worry about it to clean up. Okay, so that's that one. Some of them are heat sealed, some of them are stapled. So again, looking at the detail, the panel lining a little bit soft. Looking at the Trumperter kit we just did a moment ago, if you're watching these in order, they're a lot sharper. These tend to be very softly moulded in here. A lot of the markings a little bit flashy. The bottoms of these doors where the rail fits in is a bit, well, it's all over the place. It's a little bit chunky. The riveting detail certainly isn't as sharp. None of it's as sharp. This is a lot more blocky. We've got some details down on the inside, but unfortunately you've got huge ejector pin marks absolutely everywhere with all of those, so you have to take care of that. Okay, some detail up on the front. And I have to say, I think, you know, as a reviewer and as a model builder professionally for the last 10 years, the one thing I do have to say doing all of these is that it's getting harder to review kits because they are all at such a level. So don't think I'm being picky when I'm pulling these apart. It's just that literally I'm so used to kits now being of a certain standard and them all being roughly the same that you almost expect them to be just like that. Okay, as I was sort of expecting this kit, we're getting different tails here. So I think there's going to be other kits coming down the line. So obviously you'll be picking out which tail you fancy. Okay, going right the way through again, the panel lining is either very, very sharp or it's very, very soft and then just fades off to nothing. But again, looking at all the parts, they seem to be all very nice and clearly moulded. A lot of the detail, the raised stuff's very nice. The seating is a little bit plain. You might want to liven that one up a little bit. But the riveting detail is all there. It's just it's very softly done. Some of it's quite hard, some of it's quite soft. The differences in paneling where they're doing different types of metal, things like that, work quite well. Generally you've got nice because you've got hatch areas and hinges on the doors. These engines look a little bit crude, a little bit softly moulded. The top end up here you might be able to see, this is obviously the switcher overhead switches, a little bit basic, nothing you would write home about. The seats, front seats are something or nothing. I can imagine, and as I say, this is just my opinion and nobody else's, this kit will be a bit of a handful to go together. That's all I'm saying. It just looks clunky and big. Okay, so this is the main. If I can pull these apart. So what we have got though, we've got a nice checkerboard floor. Okay, very nicely detailed all the way through. Be great to dry brush that up. Working through underside of the actual belly of the beast, so to speak, of the helicopter. We've got some riveting detail which seems to be very nice and fine. The detailing seems to all be pretty good. The little things like this exterior hatch back here, it's just so soft and horrible to look at. It's not a nice fit at all. Okay, so lots of these what I call ejector pin tabs, which will have to be removed and cut off. Okay, so you're going to have to take care of all that yourself, but again, the ejector pin marks are out of the way. The blades, you've got webbing all over them, but it doesn't affect the actual blade itself. They seem to be nice, cleanly moulded, no problem at all, no short shot runs or anything else. Tiny ejector pin mark. Okay, in those. The details running on the underside, at least the ejector pin marks are on the other side, so you won't see those at all. The gear, again, a little bit crude for its scale and in this day and age. Okay, instrument panel, this will be the center panel, looks to be quite nice, no problem with that at all. Just drop this top camera down again. You can see it, looks to be quite nice detail. Okay, some of the details on the back, no problem. A lot of flash around these doors and that need a little bit of clean up. Okay, and right the way through. Generally, as I said, there's ejector pin tabs on everything. It's say these ejector pins in the doors are horrible. You're going to have to sand them out. Obviously, if you look through, you'll see them from the other side. If you're going to do anything, you've got the doors open. Perhaps you won't have to. Okay. It seems to be, I don't know, overcomplicated and overdone. Okay, the decal sheet themselves, at least they're somewhat separate. As you can see, we've got this photo etch piece down here at the back with this instrument panel which has no holes in it at all, so what you're going to have to do is stick this one over the top of that one. I thought it would have holes for the bezels, which should have been nicer to put that in. You get a steering wheel, no you don't, there's obviously some type of trim wheel or something down there, and then we've got the decals which seem to be very nice. Can't see any problem with those, no point really getting them all out of the bag. I can imagine this is a real handful of a kit to put together. It is certainly not straightforward. I know there's other manufacturers out there that have done Dolphins in different scales, things like that, that have done it a completely different way. Normally 2 fuselage halves come together. All of that paneling I think is going to be a bit of a nightmare. Certainly installing all of that glass work is going to be a nightmare. You know, and as I said, again, a little bit of something like your favourite PVA type glue thinned will help with a lot of that, but I imagine trying to get it all in there with no glue marks, no fingerprints, and certainly for masking it is going to be somewhat of a hassle. I think the gates are a little bit on the heavy side onto the sprue and everything else like that, and I know a lot of people have said but that's the only way you can do small parts. I don't know, you know, you look at the manufacturers seem to get away with it. Certainly if you look at Airfix these days, don't have massive gates like they used to. Revell don't do it, Trumperter don't do it. Obviously the big boys, Hasegawa, Tamiya, things like that, they don't do it. So I know the new guys coming along, obviously, you know, it's a relatively new company, Kitty Hawk, trying to bring out these kits to a certain level. It is a big uphill struggle for them to try and bring them out, but it's a very complicated kit to do. You know, if you're going to bring out a kit, I think you can probably bring out an easier one. But certainly, you know, from our point of view, if a kit not for the beginner, I think I'm going to say here. That would be my advice. If you're into your helicopters and you want to do a Dolphin, then knock yourself out. This is the kit for you. If you want a super detailed one, you could probably do a lot with this one because it's got lots of open panels, things like that. You could detail it up and obviously bring it up to your level of standard, that how you'd like to do it, and you'd end up with a great aircraft looking just like that as well. But I think for a newbie coming along who wants to have a go at the helicopter, I'd avoid this one like the plague because it is overcomplicated. Particularly I think with the glass work, things like that, and the way the paneling all goes in, to give you a nice straightforward build, I don't think this is going to be the helicopter for you. If you want more straightforward, I would look at other companies and things like that. So there we go, that's the Kitty Hawk Dolphin 2. Okay, so there we go, that's the Dolphin one. Yeah, I don't know, Kitty Hawk. But, so I have to be careful. I have never built a Kitty Hawk kit, if I'm honest. Now the reason for that is I review them and look at them and I can find problems with the kits. Now I've seen other people put them together, certainly on our site as well as others, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job, but I've never heard anybody turn around and say that's a fantastic kit, it just fell together. So that's my point. But generally when you do helicopters, it's a bit like doing vehicles and that. You build them a different way to what you're doing a standard aircraft, a Spitfire or, you know, an F-16. They all tend to go together the same no matter what real scale they are and things like that. Helicopters tend to be the same. You usually have an internal and then an external shell and it clams together and goes. That's an extremely complicated way to do it, and I can't help but think that's an overcomplicated way of doing it all. Why it doesn't just have a solid glass front that fits in, and then you've just got seal lines to do around it instead of doing all the individual windows. I can imagine that's just going to be an absolute nightmare. So I'll be avoiding that kit until something else comes along. But as I said, if you're a Dauphin fan, if you're a helicopter fan and your skills are really good, then obviously go out and get that kit because you'll be absolutely in love with it, because it looks very nicely detailed and everything else like that. Okay, so next up we've got, who is it this week? We've got Mike Milsted's Man Cave, so we can have a look around his place.
Hi there, my name's Mike Milsted and I've been a member of Phil's site for just about 3 years now. And this is my video showing you all about my modelling cave, my man cave should I say, my modelling space, and a little bit about myself and what other things I do. Well, I started modelling when I was about 7 or 8 years old, when my parents bought me a model for Christmas and my dad helped me put it together. I think it was a Tamiya MiG-19, but it could have been the P-51D. I can't remember which order they came in, but they were definitely my first 2 models. And after that, I built loads and loads of models. I spent all my pocket money on them, and I had them all over my ceiling and on the shelves in my bedroom, and I did all the usual stuff. A lot of British things, Spitfires, Hurricanes, Lancasters, etc., etc., as well as some American planes, Corsair, etc. But it was mostly aircraft, I have to say. Although a friend of mine did ship modelling, for some reason never grabbed me on that particular occasion. Anyway, here I am, many years later. I carried on modelling until I was about 18 years old, and then I went out, got a job, got married, had a family, all the usual things, and didn't do any modelling for a long time. And my wife, who knew I'd always done modelling when I was a kid, one Christmas bought me a little stocking filler present, I think she would call it, which was one of those kits in a box where you get the paints and the brushes and everything all in one box, and it was a Spitfire. And I think it was kind of a joke present. She wasn't really expecting me to do anything with it, but then shortly after that Christmas, she and my daughters were out shopping in the sales, and I had a couple of hours with nothing much to do, so I cleared the table, opened the box, and had a very fun 2 or 3 hours putting it together and painting it. I'd got the bug again, so a couple of weeks later I went out and bought myself another model, and then another one, and shortly after, of course, was the airbrush and all the other paraphernalia that goes with it. And here I am today. A smallish stash, glancing upwards, because I'll show you that later, but having a lot of fun, certainly, and really enjoying all of Phil's videos and learning lots of stuff and seeing your guys' work on the forums and also picking up lots of tips and hints as well. It's a great community, and I'm really pleased to share with that community with this little film of my man cave. So here goes with a look around my man cave. Okay, here we are about to enter the man cave. First of all, little shot of my pal Archie down there. He's going to be desperate to get in, but he's not allowed on this occasion. Hi Archie. Okay, entering the man cave, and those of you who live in the UK will instantly recognise it as the box room of a 3-bedroom semi. And this room also doubles as my office for home use and a variety of other things as well. So, starting with the door, first of all you'll notice I have an apron hanging on the door. It's an old cooking apron that got paint on it, and I use it for all my modelling because it catches all the little bits as they fall off. Instead of disappearing into a corner of the floor under things, they tend to land in the lap, which is really good. Okay, there's some photos of my parents' old house, the house I grew up in and where I did most of my modelling. Also, one of my other interests is amateur theatre, and you will see around the walls a number of posters relating to amateur theatre productions that I've been involved in, directing or producing or acting in. This one in particular I think will be recognised by some of you as a scene from A Few Good Men. Great film, it's a really great stage play as well, and I have to say I was really proud of the production that we did too. So, moving back round the room, obviously filing cabinet, which is domestic stuff, not modelling things, printer on top, my computer where I watch Phil's videos, and where I sit to do most of my work. And here we have the modelling corner itself. A couple of lamps, as you can see, daylight bulbs in this one, and this is just a standard tube. I do hope to get one of the ultra bright triple tube lamps as soon as I can, but not just yet. So if I move that light down out of the way, you'll see my paints. Nice rack, yep, Phil's idea, and I've just built it up out of a few scraps of wood. Really tidy way to organise all my paints and stuff. So as you'll see, it's a little bit messy. My latest acquisition, now the age where I need to keep a pair of reading glasses handy to go through the instructions and be able to see everything clearly. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a model. It's the Revelry box of the Hasegawa Harrier GR7/9, and you'll see bits of it under construction here. So let's just have a quick look round here. First of all, very untidy box, I know, of my tapes and bits and pieces. These are the things I keep to hand, and of course Phil's sanding sticks. Very handy little magnetic rack to keep all sorts of bits and pieces on. That's very useful indeed. And my brushes, and then there's another rack up here. Oh, going to go past the light. Another rack up here, and little various pliers and bits and bobs and all the rest of it. And of course my paint rack, a la Phil. And the piece of paper you see there, if I can just focus in on that, that's just my shorthand for all the paint letters on the usual slightly dodgy Revell painting instructions. So I don't have to keep flipping the pages back to see what colour I should be painting things. So, moving on round, yes, of course, very important, my radio, which I use to listen while I'm working, usually Radio 4, talk radio for those of you not in the UK, but BBC, so good quality, and also cricket commentary, other sports commentary, and very occasionally some music. And then over here, of course, on the monitor, I can watch Phil's videos while I'm working, or if it's cricket or something like that, I can watch that as well while I'm working. Photos of my family there as well. Coming back round here, underneath, kitchen roll, gloves and drawers used for keeping various bits and pieces. Up here, we have my painting area. So here is the compressor. It's one of the cheap Chinese ones, but it's done me sterling work now for about 3 years. It cost me about 65-70 quid. Actually, it cost my wife about that because I think she bought it as a birthday present. But so far, very pleased with it, I have to say. One of these days I will get myself a nice silent air compressor because it's a little bit noisy, but it does do the job pretty well. This sort of saucer spray booth here is simply something I knocked up out of some styrofoam card, and it simply helps to contain all the overspray. And the box you see here, it's an old laptop box. It's kind of a sacrificial box really. Being so close to the window on a really hot day, the sun can come blistering through these windows, so it just helps to keep the sun off any models I'm working on there, and stops the sort of booth here from warping too much. Obviously I open the window there when I'm painting, and so I usually get pretty good ventilation. Not quite sure how I would fit an extraction booth in here, but working on it, and maybe one of those days I will do it. It's my airbrush, it's an Iwata, and very pleased with it. Really nice piece of kit, and it's always really easy to send it back to them for service, which I've done once now, so I know that was really good. Usual stuff, gloves, cleaning materials, airbrush cleaners, a little pot of water for washing out brushes and stuff, and some masks for anything that's a little bit smelly. Although I do paint almost exclusively in acrylics now. As you'll see up here, if I go back up here, there's a few enamels along the top. If I do use those, then it's for brush painting, picking out details, that kind of thing. I don't airbrush the enamels at all. Occasionally I use aerosols for undercoating, priming rather, a couple down there, Halford's rattle cans, and that tends to be done either in the garage if it's the summer and it's warm enough, or outside if there's no wind. Otherwise I tend to use this fabulous new stuff. This is reaching over to this Vallejo surface primer. Great stuff. Really big fan of that because it's not at all smelly. Okay, moving round. Here is my display case with some of my models. It's all a bit disorganised at the moment and they all need a really good clean. But you can see here, these two shelves are probably my favourites. My very small stash up here, gradually working through them. Desperately trying not to add to the stash before I built at least 3 or 4 more. So hopefully it gets undone this summer. Before I traipse up to the IPMS show Scale Model World at Telford in October. I tend to go every 2 years. Again, usual bits and pieces. My spare airbrush, cheap Chinese one there. My modelling magazines and some reference books there. And then down here, this is where I keep most of my stuff. So sanding materials, micro drills, adhesives in there. Scratch building stuff in there. Plastic card strips, wire, scribing materials, weights for nose weights, that kind of stuff. Then in here, an assortment of oddments, unopened bottle of clear, some all-purpose cleaner, quite good for stripping paint off. These little plastic shot glasses, which are great for mixing paint if you do need to. That was £1 for that lot, and some bigger pots for, you know, dipping clear or that kind of stuff. And these are all the instructions of all the kits I've built, all stored in date order. And a spares box and another kit under there. So it's the old Academy Stuka box, but actually, as you can see, it's full of old spares, old sort of bombs and missiles and all sorts of things like that that may come in useful one day. So, just moving back round, as you can see, it's quite a busy little area, but it is all mine. I don't have to share it with anybody, and I'm a very lucky guy. So, as you can see, it's not a great big space, but it's reasonable size for what I need to do, and it's my man cave. Hope you've enjoyed it, and happy modelling.
Nice place, Mike. Have you got there and everything else? Nice little man cave to sort yourself out, and some great work you produced from there too. So congratulations to him. Remember, if you want to get your place seen here on Flory Models and in the forum and everything else like that, drop it to the forum. We've got an own dedicated area called Your Man Cave Videos. Pop it down in there, and then I'll basically copy it onto our server and then put it in part of the new show for the world to see. Or if not, you can just leave it down there. We're going to do some of the photo ones soon as well. So guys, if you've done photos, if you can make your photos quite detailed and run it around, I will put them into a video format and we can run it like that as well. So if you don't want to do video, then obviously we do photo ones as well. So lots to do. Okay, next up we're going to talk about, this is the new Trumperter 1/48 scale. This is the MiG-23 ML Flogger G. Hi, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Trumperter's new 1/48 scale. This is the MiG-23 ML Flogger G. Been after this particular kit for a while. We seem to be having a bit of a lacking with these particular kits around for the Russian stuff. Absolutely fantastic, because then you can go to your heart's content with all the weathering you want to do. You can beat them up, you can have them looking like new, and obviously there's plenty of nice markings out there in different versions you can do. So lovely bit of artwork on the front, as you can see down here, and your usual type of blurby bits about the actual aircraft as well. Okay, looking at your box bits, so there's your kit number 02855. Same thing, obviously this is UK import via Creative Models, so putting their label on it, and there we go. So in the box, so you haven't been in here. Great thing with Trumperter I do like is their boxes, and I know it seems really silly to say about it, but they are nice and strong. You can use them for obviously putting all your parts in and all things like that. Really do work a treat. So here we go down in the box. You see stuffed full of stuff, little separate compartment and everything in there. So our usual way, we'll have a look through the old paperwork side of things first, and then we'll have a look at the parts to see what we like. So we'll find in here our usual couple of bits of paper. Okay, so we've got the usual thing, what's coming out soon and everything. Some of this stuff is already out. Obviously, we've got Dan here with the Sky Warrior as the refueler, which will be a nice little touch as well. Some other bits, but it's always nice to see what's coming out. And obviously the new T80, which is the neutral one as well. So, some nice stuff there. Okay, we'll look at those bits in a moment. Right, Trumperter's normal way of doing things, so you've got sort of this bifold system. So you've got your parts tree, your fuselages, and everything else worked out around. Okay, unused parts, obviously with theirs, they just tell you what they are. Some nice decal sheets of photo etch to look out for. Okay, so if we have a quick run through, usual thing, we're going to be starting off with the seat, okay, and then the tub system goes in, so it's quite nice. You're going to have a nice tub there to weather and do your various bits and pieces with. Your engines going in, okay, and then we've actually got the fuselage set. Different way of doing the intakes, quite a nice way of doing it, putting those in the two halves like that. Nose bay going in, side panels going through, as you can imagine, pretty standard stuff. What's nice with this is they haven't done the usual and chopped the nose off for the different versions, and then you've got to deal with that seam line to put it through. It's so much easier having it like this. So, pretty straightforward so far. Engine goes in the back. It's quite a short, stubby one, but obviously that's the end of it anyway, so you're not worried about it. You can't see inside here for the actual the blades and the various things for the compressor blades, so hence why you don't really need any more back there. Cockpit goes in. The tail, I'm not sure if you're going to get the folded one. Normally they have a folded up one as well, and one in the down position. So I assume you might get something like that in a minute. Okay, intakes. So pretty nicely going to go in like that. A couple of nice detailed pieces to go on here, and obviously photo etch, which is quite a nice touch because this system here, being no expert on this fully, but basically it pushes out and it slows the air going into the engine at higher speed so you don't stall the engine. Quite nice detail on that, because they do have little fine details all over them. Both of those, as you can imagine, then it's straightforward. Nice big wheel bay going in, because obviously it's got the engine would be running down the middle. Okay, and then obviously you've got the gear. Wing system, you know, unfortunately it would have been nice to see this with deployed sort of slats and flaps on it, things like that. We're not going to get that choice on here. Okay, so you could sort of fold it up. Geared internally, obviously that means nothing to me. We wouldn't use it anyway. Looks like we've got a strengthener set going in down the back here to make it a little bit more solid down the back end, and then the plate goes on the top. If you ever built a Tomcat and things like that, it's going to be the same way. Different plates. Now I thought you might get different versions for having this in the swept or open position. It looks like you can, it will sweep, but it's designed for having it in the open position. We've got a couple of brakes down the back here for obviously the tail set, and the speed brakes going down the back. I presume you're going to have open and close. We'll look at those a bit closely in a moment, and then it's all going to go together. So obviously engine bay is going to go in, or the wheel bay I should say goes in, and then that entire section is going to drop on top. So you are going to have quite a seam line to deal with, no doubt, going all the way around here, but at least you're not going to have the problem with it running down the top here. Now we'll look closely to see how that seam is up there, because sometimes it's better to have one that's under the wings and out of sight and everything else than it is to have a nasty one running down the back. But obviously we have got this seam line which is going to fit all down here, so I imagine we have got a little bit of seam work to do. Nice touch. You can have the engines, the actual tail cones themselves open or closed. Okay, as we're going in, then we've got top of the actual instrument panel going in there with a HUD canopy set. Looks like there's no option on the canopy open, so it might need a little bit of scratching down there and everything else if you want it in the open position, just to detail it up a little bit more. Tail system, the radar warning receivers, things like that in photo etch, quite a nice touch going in there and everything else. Again, speed brakes I assume are going to be, you can do open and close going in the back. Main gear, which obviously tends to be very agricultural on the Russian jets, which is great for rough field working. Okay, and then here we go and going again. So speed brakes, looks like we've got photo etch on the inside, which will detail those up quite nicely. It is nice to see them with the open and then going right the way through. More photo etch, quite nice, all these little photo etch touches, because when you try and do them in styrene, it doesn't really work. You need something a little bit thinner. So that's going on there. Their nose going in, so we don't get any radar, which is not, you know, as I say, it's 1/48. I've been working a lot with 1/32. You almost expect it. But I thought we might get a little bit of a radar set going in there. And then obviously going right the way through, we've got that nice under cannon pod going in there. Weapons fit going on, the pylons, and then obviously we've got all the missiles for air-to-air work going on this one right the way through. And as we know, absolutely fantastic. So it doesn't look too bad at all. Markings for it, we get 2 markings by the looks of it. So you've got here red 26, which is your standard sort of Russian sand brown and green colour with the underside done. As I say, it's great with this one, and I am going to build this. This will be one that will be up later in the year because I love weathering Russian jets, because its artistic license isn't even come into it. You do what you like, because every single one of them is completely different. We've got the normal colour call outs, as you can imagine. So we've got the hobby colour, the Valero, Model Master, Tamiya and Humbrol right the way through. And then on this side we've got here 47, which will be white 47 with the sort of more the outline markings going right the way through. Looks like it's got kill markings on it as well, running through. Some nice stencil data, but as I said, it's one of those things you can really go to town. Now don't forget, this is the fighter version, not the bomber version. Okay, the bomber version or the attack version has a different nose on it and various things like that, so that's how, you know, you can see missiles, as you can imagine, going all the way through, pretty much standard. And that's it. So let's have a look. Okay, so let's start off with the bigger bits. So he says, looking for his knife, a blade, anything. We're going to use a razor. Okay, in box 1. Okay, so we've got the fuselage areas themselves, as you can see, and chances are we can bring this top cam down just a little so we get a bit more detail down in here. See the side cam, we just pop that in a little bit more. Looking at the detail, seems to be very nice. Okay, what we've got down here, we've got some very nice, catch it in the light, you can see it. It's all recessed panel lining, as we know. Riveting detail seems to be very nice and even. Down on the bottom here we've got the holes for the venting for some of these areas running right the way down. The level of detail seems to be very, very good. It's very nice, it's got a nice smooth texture to it. And generally, as you say, level of detail would be fantastic because it will take a wash very, very nicely. As you can see on all of these, hopefully the camera with the lighting will show you all that nice riveting detail, which is the one thing I love about the Russian aircraft. Okay, inside, so we've got some formal work running down here, not quite sure why. But obviously it will hold various things in place like the engine. Cockpit walls, they're sort of countersunk down here, which is a nice little touch, because what that will allow you to do is to really sit it in there properly with the walls going on there. It looks like it's got a little scarring in the moulds, which may be where they've made some little changes, which is fair enough as long as they're correct now. Generally very, very nice. That's a very nice touch. Okay, the wings. Okay, so looking at the wing detail, hopefully you can see it in the light camera, light catcher. So it's quite a flat, almost textured on here. It won't bother me because it's going to be a flat, dead flat aircraft, but if you wanted to gloss it up, you can need some gloss work on this. But the level of detail is absolutely exquisite, running right the way across. Lovely recessed riveting, was absolutely fantastic. Multi-layered, and everything else like that. There's no sign of scarring where it's removed from the mould and left little drag marks. Yes, there's webbing all over this where it's moulded, but it's not going to affect. The funny, it's nice and smooth here and rough over here, but the slats very nicely done. The flaps and everything else would have been nice if they were movable, but fair enough. We've got no ejector pin marks inside the actual gear doors, things like that all seem to be nicely clear of it. These little speed brakes very nicely cleared. Got a couple of little ejector pin marks up inside the wheel hub, which is like the stone deflector, which is not a problem because we're not going to worry about that. I assume that's part of the seat, which will be the lower part of the seat. Again, looking very, very nice. After working with quite large things recently, it seems quite small. It looks like I'm looking at a 1/72nd scale jet, but purely just because recently I've been on the real big stuff, so everything looks a little bit smaller. Okay, love this work. We've got lots of detail up here on the top. You can probably see, catch it in the light like that. That's absolutely fantastic because all that detail means it's going to take washes very nicely, which is going to sort of accentuate all of that detail, really bring it to life. Okay, and then by the time we've done some fading and things like that in there, it'll be absolutely fantastic. We've got some nice ribbing detail inside the actual speed brakes, and again, here's our speed brakes laying along here. So these are the open ones, and then these are the closed. Little bit of flash, tiny bit of flash. That's just really getting picky now on those, but generally, hopefully you can see. Catch it in the light, absolutely fantastic. Looking on the inside, so we got no ejector pin marks, which is quite nice inside the speed brakes to take care of, so that's all very good. Absolutely lovely, I must admit. It's when you look at the kit, sometimes you look at them and you think, oh, well, that's going to be a problem, I'm going to have to do that. This is, you know, could do with this, it could do with that, but looking at this one out of the box, looks absolutely lovely. Hang on, here we go. Okay, so we're going to get in a mess. Okay, this is the lower part, so it's this bit that goes on, so the wings will then go into here and then come out, then you'll flip it over. So this is the underside, but again, lovely detail, lots of riveting detail underneath there. The actual intake scoop, so we're looking at the inside. Unfortunately, we have got some quite nasty ejector pin marks just in there, which obviously you're going to take two. We're going to need a little bit of flash, but nothing you'd ever worry about. And generally coming over. Now this tail, unless I'm thinking of a different version here, I thought folded, but it looks like it's only in the down position. This is the tail thing here. Now I thought it folded on the brake and folded up, but perhaps I'm thinking of a different aircraft, because certainly they do not get an option for that. But again, everything else very nicely done. As I say, intakes need a little bit of work. And the next bag. So again, the wings, this will be the lower set, so we've got some holes here for obviously adding your pylon on, but you've got the tails, very nicely done. Again, lots of nice riveting detail, which is the thing we love about all the Russian stuff. Okay, the actual undercarriage themselves, pretty nice, no problems with that at all, no hefty seam line running between them, just a quick rub over with a sanding sponge, you'll be absolutely fine with that, that will take care of those. The wheels, nice detail on the outside, it's actually quite, you hear that, that's actually very sharp, so it's very sharply moulded, so all the little patterns on the tyres and well themselves, we've got no actual writing on there of a tyre manufacturer, but generally the hubs are moulded in, so obviously you can do that technique we showed about spraying, got a nice hub on there, you can airbrush those in one, save all that messing around. The scoops, quite a nice touch, and you see it on the end here, but the actual air scoops themselves, they've actually got pretty deep in there with a vein running through the middle. Again, see which camera gets it best. Very nice touch. A couple of ejector pin marks, but these are all well out of the way and everything else. Okay, this looks like we've got the seats and the engine, things like that down here. Let's move those. So again, nice detail. This is for the inside, this is the side of the engine, or the inside of the wheel well if you like. Very nicely done. Some nice detail all around those areas, looking particularly nice. The veining, we've got the nozzles, seem to be very nice, got no sign of a seam or anything else down there. Those we're not going to worry about. The wheel wells, again, nicely detailed. It's got the assign to the instrument panels and the seat and everything else, multi-part seat, some nice fabric texture you can probably see on down there and everything else. The tub itself, okay, as I said, it's sharp enough for its scale. Back wall, we've got some poses and things like coming down. The seat completely everywhere is detailed, even on the back of it. Okay, and the sidewall's looking very nice. Got no complaints with any of that. That looks really, really nice. Out of the box, I think this will make an absolute stunning kit. Forget having to go around waiting for the aftermarket and the photo etch and everything else. Actually, I think it's going to look really, really nice. Okay, the tails, again, obviously it's riveting, I keep going on about. Lovely job, nice, clean, crisp stuff. Instrument panel is basically just a blank, so it's going to be a decal right over the top of that, or as I say, you could sort of do your own one. Again, the gear, what's nice about it is there's no real center seam, so there's no ejector pin marks on the gear itself, it's all nicely clean. Okay, and the insides of the doors, these are the front nose wheel doors, we've got no ejector pin mark in there at all. Okay, these are all going to be multi, so we'll just look at one of them. So what we've got here is the fuel tanks. Okay, so we've got some fuel tanks on here. Okay, mixture of just panel line and then riveting detail, and it's moulded in one. The belly tank, that nice scooped up, everything else like that. We've got the sway braces in, the pylons, your standard sort of Russian pylons, and everything else. That's very nice. And in here we have two loads of missiles, which recently, after looking at sort of other manufacturers' way of doing missiles and moulding them in one, you sort of get spoiled with it. but these look pretty nice. Nice level of detail, very sharp recessed panel lining onto the actual missiles themselves. They're moulded on these early ones, which is nice, saves having to put those in, and everything else. The pylons again looking nice and very nice sharp detail, and that is just going to be another set. We won't bother on doing that. Looks very nice. You've got the Archer missiles, things like that, running all the way through. And unless I'm mistaken, there isn't that a Sidewinder lemur with the front on the end, or a mic? No, it's not the mic. The mic has the different fins, but that's certainly an early Sidewinder in there. And again, so I don't know, export variants, I suppose. Okay, the nozzles, open and closed on the nozzle. This is your difference. So we've got riveting detail, but as I say, you do get the open or the closed nozzle. Quite a nice touch. A little bit flashy, shall we say, perhaps on the closed one, but certainly the open one is very nice. Got a tiny little seam line running down the side, but a couple of swipes with the sanding stick, and that's fine. So they look quite nice. Come back there. The nose, we won't bother getting that out. Riveting detail all the way around it, and the pitot tube on the front. Intakes separately done, looking very nice. You can see the nice holes in the top. Obviously we're not worried about the inside because there's a plate on those little ones down the back, but it's nice that you've got the open blow-in doors on the side. So he's having to do all that. Now the clear parts, which are, as we come to expect, are beautifully protected. Okay, it's 48, a little bit thick, a little bit wobbly, perhaps as we manoeuvre it round, but certainly I don't think anything you would worry about. It seems to be very nice. You've got a nice clean seam line running right the way around the outside. All right, perhaps not the side bits, but certainly the rest of it. So that's very easy to mask up and to make good. Just pop him back in the bag. And hopefully we should have the front and a few other bits. Looking for the nav lights as well. Should be nav lights here somewhere. Here we go. So front canopy, beautifully crystal clear, and even the side ones, very nicely done. Okay, this is the under the chin sensor. The actual nice touch, little touch. Well, you can actually see those on there. We've actually got riveting detail on the clear parts, which is a nice little touch. Very nicely done. Little hub parts, things like that, and all the little lights. Okay. Okay, last up, photo etch. So we won't bother getting this out, but as we can see, we've got the speed brake doors just down here. We've got some harnesses, nice touch, ejection harnesses. As I say, those sensors, rearward warning sensors, a couple of other little bits I didn't even see on there somewhere, and everything else. And those blow-in doors details on the side, which do look particularly nice. Get the camera to lock in. There we go. And the decals. So as I said, I won't bother even pulling them out, they're just going to be standard type of stuff. So we've got decal instruments, panels, we've said the side panels, top and bottom. I don't know, probably dry brush and a wash might be nicer. And then the other ones going through, then there should be, and here they are. This is all the stencil data for the missiles on the side. So if you really want to sort of liven them up, you can do that, no problem at all. Some very nice stuff there. So there we go, another absolutely winner from Trumperter. Looks to be a lovely kit. Going to enjoy putting this one together in a few months' time, and I'll be cracking on with it. And you can see the full build here on Flory Models. Okay, now that is something I am going to build because, as I said, I'm a massive Russian fan. I love doing Russian weathering and things like that, and I've been waiting for those. And I was thinking about doing the 32nd scale kits, but a little bit big, take up a bit too much room. So I'm thinking, you know, that could be my dream aircraft to do. And as I said, and I know I mentioned in the review about different nose, and I do know that's the 27 version versus the 23. So there we go. Anyway, it does look very, very nice, and as I said, nice level of detail, the riveting and everything else like that. So it looks like another winner from Trumperter there. Highly recommend that kit, totally. Right, I've got to talk about a few things. We've got the Easter egg extravaganza is going to be starting on the 5th. So what are we today? I don't know what today's date is. I'm that far out of the loop. I don't know, it could be the third today, so it'd be 4th. So Saturday it starts. You're going to have a month to run on that, so we're going to run it to the 4th of May. Normally we used to just do it for a few weeks, but we're going to allow a full month on that one. It's the 4th year we've done this. Actually, I think we've done more years than it, but actually in a professional, you know, a proper SIG, I think this is our 4th year of doing it, and we have some great entries. Remember, it doesn't have to just be the Hasegawa Eggplane series. And I have got 2 of the kits somewhere around here but can't see them, but you can convert something else. So some of the guys last year, they converted kits, like 1/72, if I remember rightly. Somebody did the Typhoon and mated it up to an egg and then did it all like that. That came out really, really well. One of the other guys, I think he did a sub, that came out really, really well as well, and things like that. So don't forget, it doesn't have to be go out and buy an egg plane. You can go and convert something. So if you've got a little 1/72 something, you can buy those little plastic eggs, Kinder eggs, things like that, wang it on it, and you can make it into an egg plane. But certainly it's a free-for-all. It can be anything you like, as long as it's basically egg shaped. That's good enough for us. And we always have a lot of laughs and all the jokes, which are the same absolutely terrible ones every year, but it is lots and lots of fun. Because this is talking of this again, I've got until the 30th of April to get this done. So I'm going to have to get me little bottoming gear, because I've got some other projects as well on the go at the moment. But certainly that is when the silver screen is going to finish. Got some great entries in for that one. So that's really trying everybody push through with this one. Remember, it's a full group build, so you will get definitely the medal. Again, don't have one to hand, but you'll get the standard Flory Models medal. I am doing a limited edition, which is for group build finishers only, which is the Flory Models sticker, which is like that one, but it's going to be the new version of it and everything else, so you're all going to get one of those as well. Remember, we've got amazing prizes for this one. We've got the 132nd Zukomori Sky Raider is first prize. We've got the Trumperter 148th Tomcat, that is second prize, and third prize we've got, it's the Meng ME, it's the 410 as well. So we've got some great kits for first, second and third prizes, but don't forget, everybody's a winner who finishes on the group build. Everybody gets a medal, and everybody will get the new limited edition sticker as soon as it arrives. So at least we've got a month for that one to go on that one. No formal decisions yet on the group build after that, but I will tell you next week. I will have to sit down and speak to the guys about that one and work out what we're going to do. The support SIG finishes on the 4th of May as well, so that's going to finish the same day as the Easter egg hunt. Again, we've got some great builds coming in with those, so you know, make sure you push through, get those finished off. And we've got the Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm SIG, which started last week. You've got until the 6th of July running on that one, so we've still got lots and lots of time to get those SIGs in and those group builds and everything else like that, and then we can sit down and work out what's next and everything else, because I sort of ruined it all by doing the silver screen SIG and it threw everything, but there we go. Anyway, next up we've got a sort of review. It's not a full one, because obviously, as you'll hear in a minute, it's no different from the A really, apart from a couple one sprue. Okay, but here's Trumperter's latest release of the A6E Intruder. Okay, next up we've got the Intruder. This is A6E. Now, okay, we've already reviewed the A6A kit, and we've built the brother, sister, older sister, Trumperter 132nd kit, and absolutely loved it. Now, the real difference between the two is, from a model maker's point of view anyway, is the nose on these, okay? Now, as I said, I've already done the review for this, so we don't really need to go on to it at all. So what I'm going to do is just skim over the bits for this one that are different to the other kit. So basically, just down here, I think we're going to have to widen out this top camera a little bit. We have the A6 Intruder. There we go. Something like that, even wider perhaps. We're really going to have to go the full tilt with this kit. There we go. So there we go. There we have the A6 Intruder kit. Absolutely lovely box art. As you can see, we've got some markings we'll talk about in a little bit. The same way of doing it. Some little bit of blurb. So usual thing, 81709 is your kit number. Again, this is the main difference. They changed the colour scheme at this point. You went from being the US Navy two-tone white dull grey system to just going into standard combat greys. Now, I haven't looked in here yet, or even opened the box on this one. The kit itself, if we have a quick look through the instructions, will be something just like this. Now, it will go together exactly the same as the other kit, right the way through, I imagine, absolutely everywhere, because the only difference should be The instrument panel should be a few little TB screens and various boxes, because it's slightly different in this version. But from an external point of view, apart from the nose and in here, so you've got the early version, and we spoke about it during the build, they very quickly learned that the speed brakes did pretty much useless. They aerodynamically very unstable for the aircraft, so it works better off the sort of two clamshell looking ones on the actual wingtips rather than using the big one behind the engines. Okay, so that quickly all went out the window and they were bolted up, but I bolted mine up on the A version anyway, because I did mine as a late A. So the biggest difference you will find between the two kits is this area. Now this is the one because the actual radar system on this one is a little bit different. The radome, the way it fits in and everything else, because obviously the three versions, you have the A, you have the E and you have the tram. Okay. Things like the actual main areas, you can imagine the build like this is exactly the same as the A. Okay, and the wings are all the same as the A, and everything down here is all the same as the A, and the wing fold set and everything else. This is the difference. Okay, so what you actually get is this bottom plate with another box of tricks, fits underneath the radar system and pokes up, hence the nose is a little bit different. Instead of it just being a perfect nose all the way through, you have this cutout area at the front, and that makes the difference. And the rest of it all goes together exactly the same. Then obviously as later weapons came along, this one was capable of carrying different weapons fit to the earlier A version. Okay, and that is really how it is. So when you look at this one, obviously the major difference is you're going to get the one off the Kennedy, okay, which has, obviously you can see a little bit of difference down here in the nose, but is in that standard, what we did with the tan, the gold grey over white, okay, and then right the way through, versus this one is when it all changed, because you had this grey set came in, which was the two-tone grey sets going right the way through, which is a little bit different. Okay, but from a kit point of view, I'm not going to get all these sprues out, because that should be exactly the same as the A sprue as we know. That will be exactly the same with the wings. The engine will be exactly the same. What you are getting different is this guy. So this is the only sprue set you will have that is different, which is an upgrade from the A. So actually what you get here is this new nose set with this chunk out of it, as we spoke about before. So if we just drop the old camera down, you can see it properly. So this is it. It has a cutout on there, just like this. You have a new instrument panel because you get an extra TV on it. Okay, you have the round one underneath and one on the top instead of that box scope coming up that you actually look through. This is the bottom of the radar, so that's the outside bit. This is it, so you get a new box of tricks coming through. And then down here, this is where it all looks slightly different, this is the tram version as well. So you've actually got the little seeker head, the little TV camera thing underneath the nose and everything else. You also get different air scoops down on the back of the spine of it. But the kit itself is actually, so what you've actually got here, and I imagine you may be able to build the tram version as well as the E from this kit, because these are just tram parts for it, which I've only just noticed. So I'm just looking through. And everything else is, he says, just double checking everything. Yeah, it's exactly the same as we're just going through these kits as that what you'll get with the A version down in here. So you can't build the A version of this kit because obviously it has a different nose set and you won't get the option of it. Also it's got a different instrument panel, unless they popped it in here. Combing the boxes all around the cockpit is exactly the same. The seats are exactly the same. Just trying to save you some money here. They're all the same. You've got the triple ejector racks with the rock eyes and everything else down there. So yeah, you're not going to be able to build the A out of this because it's got the different nose, it's got the different instrument panel, but certainly you can build the, it looks like the E and the tram out of this kit. And so I'm just checking everywhere. Yeah. So there we go, that is the latest boxing. So no doubt there will be a tram version coming out, and then with obviously with the tram version you're going to get the decals for the tram and everything else, because obviously you don't get the decals in this one. But the usual thing, you've got all the colour call-outs and everything else as you go right the way through. But what this does do is make you a nice set now, because as I say, you've got this version of the E, which is the a slightly later version, so it will give you more options. If you don't like doing this sort of the gold, grey over white scheme, the sort of more classic scheme, then you can certainly do the later ones now because you get the grey schemes with it, versus the A version, which you're pretty much stuck with this particular one of being the early intruder and everything else. Personally, it's one of my favourite all-time aircraft. I love it to death, and if you haven't seen it, have a look at our intruder build on this one, because it almost goes together exactly the same in the 32nd kit as it does with the 48th kit. So if you want to do the 48th version, apart from doing the engines like I did on mine and playing around with it all, you can just follow along the build because the actual construction is exactly the same with both the models. So there we go. I might as well show you the proper one first. Now we have the great option of the A6E and the A6A to come out, and also you get the tram parts in here, so I think with a little, not much modification at all, you could easily turn this into a tram kit as well. So it is an absolute stunning kit. Remember, if you haven't seen it, have a look at the 32nd Trumpeter one I did. It's exactly the same. As I say, different engine way of doing the engines, because you obviously don't get the engines on this one, but all the other bits and pieces, absolutely fantastic. And hopefully Trumpeter will be coming out shortly and either bringing out the E or doing the same as I think this is, the E and the tram in the same type of box in 32nd as well, because that will be an absolutely stunning aircraft, because the amount of decals and choices you'll have then, and you know, just the colour scheme's absolutely fantastic, and you can do some of the meatiest weathering you're ever likely to see, because these little birds, they'll absolutely kick to death in their later years. So it'll be really, really nice to see those heavily weathered and everything else. But as you can tell, it's still one of my favourite aircraft of all time. I absolutely loved it to bits, loved working on it, and as I say, I might even do the 48 somewhere along the line as well, just to complement my other one, perhaps gear up on a stand, something else like that. So I've got best of both worlds. But looking at it, as I said, as far as I can see, as it's a quick review, literally I've just opened the box and gone through it, I can only see one sprue difference between the A version and the E, but the E does have the tram bits, which is the optical camera. It's like a lightning pod stuck on the chin of it. Down here is the difference. Okay, so you may be able to get away, but as I said, I'm by no means an expert, and you obviously have to check all your details and your references, but it definitely means the tram version is coming along very, very shortly. So there we go, lovely kit, absolutely fantastic. Right, that's it for this week. I'm going to leave you with Michael Wilson. Now he's done the 1/35th scale Trumpeter. Now I have to read this. This is the CHTZ 65. That's it. I didn't know what it was either, but I tell you what, this is absolutely stunning, and it's something a little bit different, okay? So have a look at this. So until next week, everybody, happy modelling and take care.